Hey there, folks, it's me, Malorian. Welcome back to Malorian Weekly, and what we're going to be talking about today is a viewer question that came in from local James, just kind of saying, like, well, what's kind of like the way that you can get into running tournaments for a person that's just getting into it? What do you do? And I know this is a big question for a lot of people that have been interested in this, and I think this is a very timely question because right now, as we're all taking breaks, as we're all isolating in place type thing, we're all kind of like keen and waiting for that time we can get back and play. And I mean, like the weekly gaming, that'll be nice, but the best thing is going to be that first tournament. And maybe you already have somebody in your area that runs tournaments, and so you don't need to worry about this. But maybe you don't, and it would be really nice if you could run this yourself, or maybe there is somebody else that runs events, but you know what? You want to take this on, and you really are just like, since you're sitting around not being able to do much of anything anyway right now, why not plan the next tournament? Now, of course, the real problem here is going to be we don't know when it's for, but what we're going to be really covering in this video is just really what are the main things you have to really do to run a tournament, what are some of the pitfalls, and really setting you up for success so that if you do want to take this on yourself, you can do it very easily. Now, the very first question you need to be asking yourself when you're going to be running this is just, what is the intent? What is the goal of this? Because depending where this gets answered is going to be changing which way we're going to be going with it. So what I mean by this is that, is this supposed to be a straight up steamroller? We want to go and compete and there's going to be a trophy in the end? Is this going to be something fluffy and fun? Is this supposed to be something, quick, long, whatever? Like, and the thing is that you might not have these answers. And so one of the things that you probably want to do getting into this is just kind of checking with your local meta and being like, hey, I'm feeling like running something. What are you guys looking for? Because they might come up and just say, oh, I want a steamroller. I want this. I want that. And the thing is that if you have all the inspiration to get something running, but they don't really want that, they want to be doing this, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure right away. So that's the first thing, is get in your mind what you want to try and run, and then kind of connect with the community just to make sure that you're all on the same page. Because if you're in there being like, we're going to go for a fully painted, big, huge, fluffy campaign where every game going to the next, there'll be different changes, and like your army now has this, and then, okay, if nobody wants to be getting into this type of thing, you got to make sure that you don't set that up. So again, I'm kind of stressing this one, but that's very important to start off with. The next thing you need to be thinking about is the venue. The venue is such a huge thing when it comes to tournaments, and there's a lot of factors to really think about. And probably the very first one is just price, right? Venues can be expensive. When I used to run my big Blood and Gears, we're looking at a couple of $1,000s I'm tossing at a venue, and if you're a person running your first tournament, you probably don't want to be doing that. So one of the best places you can do these things for free pretty much is probably wherever you have your weekly gaming at, right? If there's a game store or whatever it is, typically those are free, and so that's fantastic. Now, the only issue there is know that sometimes hours are an issue, right? Especially if you're running a 4-round event. If it's 3, it's usually pretty easy to fit that within their schedule, but if it's 4, that can be a real problem. Also keep in mind that stores don't just usually do your thing, they do lots of things. And so if you just assume like, oh, well, every Saturday we play at this store, we're going to do that again, and then it turns out it's like a magic pre-release, or who knows what else is going on and what's being planned, you just might not have the space and the availability to actually use that. So just like how you have to connect with your meta to make sure you're running the right type of tournament, connect with that venue, especially if it's like a store, just to make sure like, okay, can I run this tournament? When can we open? When can we close? Can I bring in food? And that's the next thing you got to start thinking about, is what is the food going to be? Are you going to provide food? Maybe it's a simple thing where like, hey, come and play. When it's time to eat, get out of here and get your own food. Or maybe you are going to be providing your own food. If so, how's it getting there? If so, is this something you have to be making yourself? Is there things you have to be making sure everything's clean? Is there going to be, like allergies you have to worry about? And so I'd really say that for your first one that you're running, don't do food. Or if everybody is pretty much good and has no allergies, just like order pizza so that you can just do your thing, order pizza, have it come in, lay it out with like some pop, you're done. The next thing you want to be thinking about is, what are you actually competing for? What are the prizes at the very end? And that can be very important. You know, is this something where you're going to be doing this for a trophy? Is this something where you're going to be doing this for, maybe models? Maybe it's straight up for money. I did one of those tournaments once where the winner got like $400. So, I mean, that was a real thing we tried. We didn't go with that after. But again, what are you actually competing for? Are you even competing for anything? Maybe that's how you're going to keep things down, is just being like, you know what, there's going to be no awards. We're just coming out and it's a tournament, but it's for funsies. And I think another thing to think about too is how you're going to distribute those prizes. Is it just for first? Or are you going to have first, second, third? And if you are going to have first, second, third, how are you determining second and third? Are you going with strength of schedule? Are you doing a top table variant? Because once you have prizes on the line, that becomes very, very important, right? If it's a straight up easy thing, we got 8 players doing 3 rounds. At the very end, there'll be 1 undefeated, and there's 1 prize. Well, there you go. That's easy. That's for you. But if you had third place, who takes that? So really make sure you think about that ahead of the time and make sure you actually communicate that out. As long as you're doing those things, also think about if you're going to be doing any extra prizes, like prizes for randomly for people playing all the games just to make sure they stay to the end. Is there going to be a prize for painting? All those things you have to kind of keep in mind with that. And the reason why you need to remember about the venue, the food, the prizes, is that this is going to determine how much you have to charge for this. So one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people are like, yeah, I'm running a tournament. It'll be $10 per person. We're doing lunch. We're having these prizes. And then at the end of the day, it turns out that they didn't do their math and now they're down like hundreds of dollars or something, right? Again, like hopefully if this is your first one, you're starting small so that risk factor isn't there. And especially if you do things like, hey, look, I'm going to a free venue. I'm not doing food. I'm just going to do like a trophy for first. So my investment into this is like, let's say $40. Okay, so as long as I have this many people, I'm okay. And I think the big thing too is to make sure that when you're trying to gauge that money on the people, have a buffer. Because in my experience, if you have this many people that say they're going to be playing, you'll have that many that actually do. And then all of a sudden, if you're out that money, that can be you who is in big trouble. So again, if this is your first one, bring down that risk factor. Don't have extra prizes. I wouldn't do food. Really gauge it. And then as you start running more and more, just keep on adding to it, right? Just say like, okay, for this first one, we're keeping it simple. And then we're going to kind of go from there. The next thing is that you're going to need to have stuff for this, right? If you're running an event, you need to have mats, you need to have terrain, you need to have clocks, you need to have this and this and this and this and this. And that can be a lot. When I started getting into running tournaments and I started collecting these things, it really surprised me how expensive this was to try and buy all the things I'd need if I have a big event. Luckily, in the first place I ran thing, they actually had them there at the store. So if the store has these things, that's fantastic. But also know that there can be a limit. And so if you're limited by your tables, your terrain, whatever it is, you have to post that you have that limit. So 8 people is max. And just make sure you have that, because you don't want to say like, oh, here's the tournament, sign up, and you get 12 people on the list and you could only handle 8 and now you're in a lot of trouble. So think about those limitations. Know that some of those limitations can get around by things like, hey, who has some fold up Costco tables they can bring? Who has a mat they can bring? Terrain, clocks, blah, blah, blah. Know that on your war room, there's actually a clock app on there. So if you don't own clocks, you could be doing that. Or maybe because you don't have the clocks, screw it. We're going to do a tournament without clocks. Let's just do that type of thing. I think then the next big thing after that is just that communication. Make sure that you communicate your event like a good at least a month before. As things come up, make sure that everybody is interested and everybody knows, because if you do an initial announcement and then nothing, people forget, they schedule other things that weekend, and then that's when you start having a lot more drops. So keep them entertained, keep them knowing. And then a big thing too is when you're in there, take those pictures, because after, people love seeing what's going on. And if you're trying to think about, this won't just be one, but this will be a series, if others can see like, oh wow, that person went and that person went, they all look like they're having so much fun, that's just going to be even better. So the more that you can become not just an event organizer, but a media presence, the two just work together and it works out great. Now, I think the last thing you have to think about in going into this is, can you play in your own tournaments? And that really is determined by a lot of factors. One, Do you even have the time to, right? Because running a tournament can be really busy, especially if you're being a judge as well and having to run over here and run over there, setting up tables between the matches and things like that. So I would say for your first one, don't play. Be just a straight up judge and TO and do your thing on the side. And only later on, when you really know it, get into it later. Like, okay, you know what? I can do this. I can play at the same time. It's fine. But at the very beginning, I would not play for your first couple of tournaments just to make sure you have everything worked out, because all of a sudden you can have a very thing like, I got a judge call here. This person has to drop. We have this problem. And, just trying to deal with all these things can be a real hassle and a real nightmare if you're also expected to be playing at the same time. A lot of the other details are things that really you don't need to really worry about too much. I mean, if this was like a later advanced one, we'd be talking about things like, what program are you going to use for running your tournaments? Make sure to label, make sure to this and this and this. But honestly, a lot of these things don't really matter so much when you're first trying to do these things. Sure, it'd be nice if you labeled your tables with, who's on what table and the numbers, and you got a big screen for posting it. Maybe you're putting it on Facebook too. But really, if it's your first one, it's a small one, just figure out your pairings, yell them out, off you go. You don't need to be worried about having, I'm going to run this program or this program or this. Just use the sheets, right? Everybody write in your sheets, give them to me. I'll shuffle them as needed so that the 2 and 1s are together and the 1 and 2s are together. Figure out a pair up, pair down if you need to. Here, table 1's this, table 2's that. Doing it off the sheets can be super easy, super fast. I had one tournament where my computer just died, and so I could not use my stuff. Boom, went to papers, nice and easy and smooth, no problem whatsoever. So I think that's the biggest thing. The last thing I want to say is that don't feel that every one event is going to be stamped on your conscience forever. This is something where it should be seen as a gradual improvement type thing, where I'm going to do this, I'm going to have some learnings, I'm going to go to this, I'm going to have some learnings, and we're just going to get better and better and better. And with that, make sure that's very clear. Like, hey folks, this is my first time running a tournament. It's not going to be perfect, but work with me because I want this to be as great as possible for everybody. So, if there's something you don't like, let me know. If there's something you want added, let me know. And this is how you just get better over time. And I mean, honestly, once you start doing it for a couple of years, it's just super easy. If I got a call right now saying, Malorian, I want to be running a 20-person tournament, I got the venue, it's tomorrow, whatever, we need to do this. We can do these things. It's all set up. It's all kind of like going through the action. So don't feel you need to be at this now. Feel at right now, there's just those base things you need to take care about. Venue, food, pricing, materials, and then the rest will kind of fall in place. So there you go. Please use that. If you have any other questions about running events or anything like that, please post it down below. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.